Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Astro Consciousness channel. I am Millie, and I am here to give you your forecast for the new moon in Taurus taking place on May 7th, 2024. So, the beautiful thing, among many things about this new moon, is that it closes off officially the eclipse season, the first eclipse season of 2024. As a fun astro fact for those of you who follow astrology and actually study it, eclipse seasons are measured a little bit different from astrologer to astrologer. That's one thing I've noticed. But the way that I learned it from my astrology teacher about 10 years ago was that eclipse seasons are measured by the new moon before the first eclipse and the new moon after the second eclipse. So the first new moon before the first eclipse was the new moon in Pisces that took place on March 10th. And this new moon in Taurus closes off this season on May 7th. So when you think about that timeline, March 10th to May 7th, that's almost 2 whole months. And I invite you to think about how much has happened for you within those 8 weeks. Now, for some people, depending on the sign, depending on where this falls on your chart, a lot of the changes and transformations, manifestations were very external. For some people, it really manifested in opportunities, relationships, career changes, really beautiful things. And for others, it manifested in a lot of internal aha moments, in the understanding of what needs to be done, especially over the next 6 months, in order to move forward with something that maybe they've been thinking about moving forward with for quite some time. Whatever it is, eclipse seasons are times of significant endings in order for there to be significant new beginnings, okay? And as we move with this first new moon after the eclipse, I am so thankful to the universe because what a lovely new moon to send us off with. This new moon in Taurus is probably one of the best, most positive new moons of the year. It's in a grounded earth sign, which I really love because I think that we are needing a lot of that grounding energy after a really significant and for some tumultuous eclipse season. And so as we move towards the rest of Taurus season, we can really begin to see how we're going to work with this new moon energy. Okay, so let's get started with breaking this down. So the first thing that we want to look at, as this is a new moon in Taurus, we want to look at what the ruler of Taurus is doing. This is so important, and the ruler of Taurus is Venus. And Venus is actually in the sign of Taurus at the time of this new moon. Why does this matter? Because Venus not only rules this new moon, not only is in one of its home signs, but Venus also rules the south node in Libra that we're currently experiencing eclipses in, okay? All of this is so fascinating. When we look at astrology from a holistic perspective, and we understand that the succession of the signs, the order that the signs happen in, is on purpose, we have to remember that Taurus comes before Libra in the zodiac. Whereas Taurus is the second sign of the zodiac, Libra is the seventh sign of the zodiac. Why does this matter? Because Venus being the planet that rules partnerships, relationships, it rules contracts, agreements. Venus is the sign that rules beauty, aesthetic, a sense of balance. The fact that Taurus comes before Libra means that before we can be in a relationship that is actually balanced, and I'll get to what that really means in a second, we need to first have ownership of ourselves, which is what Venus and Taurus is inviting us to understand. The core and the essence of Taurus is self-possession. It is the second sign of the zodiac that comes after Aries, which is the I am. And by the time that we get to Taurus is the understanding of I have. But essentially what we first have, what we first possess is ourself, is our body, right? Which is also why Taurus is the sign that rules the senses. There is an understanding. There is, in the same way that a baby begins to discover the world, begins to discover its toes, its hands, its nose, that is the succession and the holistic progression of the zodiac. So what does this mean for us? Taurus in the zodiac represents a sense of self-worth, self-confidence, money, earning, again, a sense of groundedness within ourselves, a sense of self-possession in the understanding that if I am within myself, if I understand that I have myself, that I can be there for myself, and am confident that that is enough, I can move through the world differently. So then by the time that I get to Libra energy, which is the sign of relationships, I can understand that I have got myself enough, that I am self-possessed enough to be in a relationship that is balanced, not necessarily because we are equal or because we have all of the things in common or we like the same things or we're always happy. But true balance comes with the understanding that I can be okay, I can be self-possessed, I can come back to myself, and you can do the same. I can be okay even if you're not. You can be okay even if I'm not. Do you see what I'm saying? Because the South Node in Libra right now is highlighting codependence. And codependence tells us that I cannot be okay if you are not okay. And the North Node in Aries, what it's telling us is, how do you come back to your sense of independence so that now with Venus and Taurus, you can understand what it is to have a self-possessed, in the positive way, relationship, self-possessed Taurus relationship, Venus, with yourself. It is not an accident that these things are happening at the same time. So when it comes to relationships, what did you learn during the eclipse season about expressing your needs, simply expressing yourself, expressing what you think, perhaps even at the risk of being rejected or disliked by others, and saying, that's okay. That's okay, because now that we go into Taurus season, we get to say, I've got me, and that's okay. As long as the South Node remains in Libra, which is the rest of this year through January of 2025, we want to pay attention to what Venus is doing, because Venus is ruling that South Node in Libra. And what the South Node does is that it purifies the sign that it's transiting in, and therefore transforms it. The South Node in Libra is purifying and transforming how we do relationships. And currently with this new moon in Taurus, this Venus in Taurus is really inviting us to understand who we are, what we want, what we desire, and who and what truly deserves our time, energy, and attention. Because what you're going to potentially see and hear, a lot of the interpretation of this new moon is that it is a lucky new moon, it is a great new moon, that it's going to, bring a lot of wealth, a lot of riches, a lot of abundance. And while that isn't necessarily inaccurate, we are still human beings who live in this world, who connect and attract according to what we're feeling inside, right? We attract who we are, not who we say we are. We attract what we are being, not what we say we are going to be. So this Venus in Taurus is an important reminder, and I think one of the most important components of this entire new moon. The beautiful thing about Taurus energy, especially from an evolutionary perspective, is that the wisdom of Taurus lies in its simplicity. That's something that I learned from evolutionary astrologer Stephen Forrest. And I remember when I read that in one of his books, I was really blown away because there is something so grounding, so liberating about simplicity, not just simplicity in the way of living, but in your way of thinking. And there is also an immense amount of liberation that comes when we simplify our lives based on what we value. When we get clear on what we value in our life, then we base the decisions that we make in our life around those values. And that's something that this Venus and Taurus is very, very much highlighting. Another thing that we have to keep in mind is that this new moon is still under the influence of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus that took place on April 20th. So at the time of the new moon, Jupiter is at 25 degrees Taurus and Uranus is at 22 degrees Taurus. So even though Jupiter is all the way at 25 degrees Taurus and Venus is at 10 degrees Taurus, we can still consider them within a conjunction because there's a stellium taking place. A stellium in the zodiac is 3 or more planetary bodies in the same sign. And in this case, we have Venus, the Sun, the Moon, Uranus, and Jupiter. 5 planets in the sign of Taurus. Now that we understand the role that Venus plays in this new moon, and we understand that we're coming from a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, which opened up an energetic window of the next for the next 14 years, we have to understand Jupiter's role here. So Jupiter and Taurus, in a very traditional interpretation, is really known, is described as expanding and growing wealth, growing abundance, lots of money, lots of yummy stuff coming our way, lots of luxury. But Jupiter went into Taurus in 2023. What happened with Venus in 2023? We had a Venus retrograde in the sign of Leo between August and late September of 2023. When you have the ruler of a sign go retrograde, it is going to affect that sign and any planet that is in that sign. So because Venus went retrograde in Leo in 2023, for a lot of people, we didn't really get to enjoy the abundance and the wealth and the fruitfulness that traditionally Jupiter and Taurus tends to bring with it. Now, when we take a step back and we look at this much more from a spiritual perspective, to me, this feels like we were meant to get very clear about what wealth and abundance actually means to us. And if we go with the theme of Stephen Forrest in that Taurus's wisdom lies in its simplicity, I think that we were really moved by the universe into this energy, into this space of less is more. Truly recognize what actually matters in your life. And more importantly, stop measuring or defining your success or what your life looks like according to what we have been told, taught, and conditioned to believe success looks like. So, very simple examples. Think about the cost of housing, right? A lot of people, a lot of millennials in particular, are unable to afford actually purchasing a home. The reason for that is that in cities like Los Angeles, for instance, it's starting to look like the average minimum price of a home is $1 million. Not everyone makes the kind of money to afford $1 million home, even though that $1 million home might be a standard 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home. Okay, very simple example that has to do with the cost of living, which Jupiter and Taurus rules, and having to redefine what success and what attainment means to us based on the circumstances that we can't fully control. And that's where Uranus and Taurus plays a role, because Uranus and Taurus has represented, Uranus in general represents that which is out of our control. Uranus and Taurus has represented, in a lot of ways, the rise in the cost of things and how we have no control over that, okay? When we're faced with these dilemmas, it isn't so much about changing the circumstance, especially when it's, again, out of our control and we know that we can't. It is about changing our outlook on it and about redefining how we're going to move forward from this point on. Why am I explaining all of this to you? Because it's important that you have the context of where we've been coming from in order to understand where we're going. In order for you to truly take advantage and understand the riches of this new moon in Taurus, you first have to understand, again, what does abundance, wealth mean to me? What does success mean to me? What have you learned about how important simplicity is in your life? Think about how much chaos you have removed from your life in order to be able to feel like you have a sense of grounding. Or if you're not there yet, think about the desire that you have to remove yourself from chaotic situations in order to just live a simple life. Now, a simple life doesn't have to mean that for those that wish to have to make a lot of money, that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that. And it doesn't mean that you can't. Uranus here is asking us to, again, liberate ourselves from preconceived notions and predetermined and pre-established conditions around what success means. And more importantly, that you are setting intentions with this new moon from a self-possessed place. And what does that mean? That you understand what's important to you and begin to take steps forward from that place, not from what's expected of you. And I think that that right there is like the sweet spot, the nectar of this new moon. Because in a very grounded way, in a way where we have seen so much over the last 8 weeks. And I think a lot of what we've seen is a lot of what we do not want. That is one of the most common themes that I've noticed. I may not know exactly where I'm going, but I know exactly what I don't want anymore in my life. I know exactly what the experiences I no longer want to have, the interactions I no longer want to have, the thoughts I no longer want to have dictate the decisions in my life. And that's what this is calling for. When we think about abundance and wealth, self-confidence from that perspective, that's different. Because another thing that Taurus in the zodiac teaches us is that slow and steady wins the race. If you are certain of the outcome, why would you ever quit? If you are certain of the outcome, why would you ever be anxious, right? So if you have a vision and you understand that that is something that you truly desire, you're not competing with anyone. There's no sense of rush. You're not comparing yourself to anybody. You're not trying to prove anything to anyone. You're simply moving in the direction of, this is what feels right to me. This is what I feel is going to bring me something sustainable and foundational in the long run. And that is all Taurus energy. Taurus energy reminds us that when we understand in our bodies why we are doing what we're doing, the purpose in that, the purpose for that in our lives, then we can begin to really feel the sense of abundance and wealth within us that will eventually align us with that abundance and wealth externally. This is what it means to first feel wealthy, feel abundance in order to attract that into your life. There has to be a lot of dismantling that first takes place, which has happened over the eclipse season. And since Uranus is still there will still be some more dismantling that takes place. But now, ideally, there is a clearer understanding of why we want the things we want. What is the intention behind our actions? And when we get in touch with that, we get to take inspired action. So that inspired action actually takes me to Mars in Aries. So Mars at the time of the new moon is at 5 degrees Aries. We have to keep in mind that over the next month, because Mars remains in Aries till June 9th. So through the entire month of May and into June, Mars is going to transit and hit some of the degrees that were very important during eclipse season, especially that 19 degrees Aries, which was the degree of the solar eclipse in Aries of April 8th. What does this mean within the context of this new moon? That Mars, first of all, Mars is in its home sign. And that matters because now we're going to start feeling unstuck. We're going to begin taking action. We're really excited. And here's the thing, what you want to be very mindful of. When Mars is in its home sign, in one of its home signs, especially Aries, it's like, I want to do all the things at once right now. But remember what I said a few moments ago with the energy of Taurus. If you are certain of the outcome and you're certain about why you're doing the things you're doing, why would you rush? Slow and steady wins the race, because the last thing that you want to do is burn out. And here's why I see the potential of burnout right now. One, it's kind of like one of the key themes and components and expressions and manifestations of an unintegrated Mars and Aries. Let's do it fast. Let's do it now. Let's do it yesterday. Let's do all the things. Let's do the 100 things that this entire project takes in 1 week. Usually, when we take action in that way, we're coming from a space where we're not trusting the timeline of things. And the reason we're not trusting the timeline of things is because we are afraid that if we don't act quickly enough, it's simply going to go away. And when we go back to Taurus themes, self-possession, I know there is a certainty within us. A Taurus invites us to get in touch with a certainty within us. I know that the intentions I am setting are going to come to fruition. I know that the intentions I'm setting and that the things that I'm moving towards are going to manifest into something tangible, something physical, and something that for a lot of people, depending on the intentions that you set, is going to give you some money. It's going to, give you some wealth, give you some physical abundance. Be mindful that you are using the energy of Mars and Aries as a way to get unstuck, as a way to become, to stay positive, to stay motivated. Another reason why you want to be mindful of that energy is that Pluto in Aquarius is creating a beautiful, really empowering sextile to that Mars in Aries. It is, I believe in myself. I don't have to really see the full picture yet to understand what this can be. It's exciting. Pluto in Aquarius represents the new paradigm that we're moving into. Pluto in Aquarius represents, can you envision beyond what you know? Can you base your future on your imagination instead of certain experiences in the past that only tend to limit you? Pluto in Aquarius represents truly leaving the past in the past and daring to create and build a different future for yourself. This is especially going to be true and make a lot more sense into 2025, 2026, and 2027 for a lot of other reasons. But this new moon actually is important for that. Okay. So as Mars and Aries gives us the motivation, gets us unstuck, begins the beginning of things that we thought about during eclipse season, The support and the grounding of Taurus energy is reminding us, you get to have this. You get to be new at this. You get to trust yourself, your skills, your knowledge. And you get to step into a space perhaps that you have always wanted to step into, or maybe you just recently accepted, I could do that. Yeah, and I'm gonna feel good about it. And it's okay for it to just be you. With Uranus playing, again, a major role in Taurus, and Pluto being in Aquarius, Aquarius being ruled by Uranus, there is an element of doing something different. There is an element of doing something different with the intention of this new moon. And that differentiating factor is you. If there is any energy in the zodiac that represents authentic expression, is Uranus and Aquarius. Because those are the two energies in the zodiac that remind us of how necessary that is. If Aquarius rules communities and the collective, but as an individual is the very unique expression of that individual, and how the unique expression of every individual makes for really beautiful communities, that is our invitation. That is our invitation. I'm breaking things down in this way because I think that with the way, when we just look at our everyday lives, when we look at what adulting looks like nowadays, right? Inflation, a lot of people are having to find, side gigs, second jobs, some even third jobs to be able to afford living. And here we are in a time, in an era in which we can express our talents, our knowledge, our skills on a platform like this, for instance, or on any other platform. The cosmos are saying each and every one of you was brought onto this world to share something with the rest of the collective. What that is becomes your own responsibility as an individual to not only figure out, but to actually truly finesse, truly master. I say that because Taurus in its highest expression is very particular. Taurus in its highest expression wants to do things right. And this is a common theme with all of the earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, but in different ways. There is an element of mastering something. There is an element of understanding that you have a responsibility to genuinely be an expert in what you have to offer the world, whether you get on a platform, on a camera or not, but to make sure that you do it in a way where it honors what you're expressing. So this actually does come with a certain level of responsibility, because when we think about, oh, the collective actually gets better if I express myself, then that means that we're adding something. We are adding something to the shift of this collective that is represented by Pluto in Aquarius. And if we really want to be of an impact, we get to add something of value, Venus in Taurus. And in order for something to be of value, we need to care about it. We need to have the integrity to say, I'm going to actually educate myself. I'm going to actually make sure that I know what I'm talking about, that I master something. Earth energy, regardless of the sign, is actually, there's a mastery there. There's a repetitiveness that the earth signs remind us of in order to truly achieve beautiful, tangible things. So while on the one hand, we have so much earth energy, which immediately tells us the potential for physical, tangible manifestations of this is there. There's also a very metaphysical perspective here. There's also a lot of metaphysical weight here. We get to impact the collective, which is what Pluto in Aquarius is inviting us to do, by getting in touch with our unique expression, our unique way of being in the world, And how are we actually sharing that with the rest of the world? One of the things you're going to notice, especially over the next 20 years, as Pluto continues to make its progression into Aquarius, is that we are going to truly, truly recognize how much we are actually part of the collective, how much we are actually connected. And that's going to look like a lot of different things in a lot of different ways as years go on. But when we understand who we are and what we have to offer, we can truly understand that we're making an impact in the world. Again, this doesn't mean that you have to get on a platform, that you have to have a camera in front of you. This just gets to mean that if you in your workplace work in a certain position, you get to help a fellow coworker. You get to teach something that the rest of the people in your workplace don't know. Within your family, you get to share new things with them, new ideologies. Why does this matter? Because Taurus is an energy that, if especially with Venus there, if we understand our inherent sense of worth and we share that in the most honest, authentic expression to others, others get to understand that that exists within them as well. When we truly step into our light, especially an expression or a creative light, and this is something that I learned from the teachings of Abraham Hicks, others have the privilege and the gift of seeing your light, and hopefully they are within the level of consciousness that they get to recognize that they're witnessing your light because that same light exists within them. This takes on a whole different interpretation of all of this Taurus energy. Because with Uranus and Jupiter involved, with that conjunction that only takes place every 14 years, we're talking about the effect that we get to have on each other for the next 14 years, while Pluto will remain in Aquarius for the next 20. Do you see what I'm saying here? This isn't just from one lunar month to the next. This Earth energy, this Earth new moon is inviting us to begin something that gets to give us grounding, a sense of foundation, but more importantly, a sense of who we truly are in the long run. Will that change throughout time? Absolutely. Will our approach change over time? Do we get to change our mind? Absolutely, we do. But the intention overall is, how do you express yourself in the most authentic way? How do you remain grounded in that? And how does that actually help and expand to the collective? With Venus and Taurus there, I think that we can get a great sense of fulfillment, knowing that we're building a life, that we're creating a life that is truly aligned with our values. So for those of you in the Substack subscription, your horoscopes for this new moon are going to be all about what is this new moon asking you to set an intention for. So I'm going to give you prompts, and I'm kind of going to guide you in the direction of, what do you know your intention for this new moon needs to be? And the understanding that we get to be new at this. Mars in Aries, it's a very young energy, very jovial. It wants to do things quickly, but we want to be mindful of that. That energy right there is, we get to be new at this. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. Aries, in essence, implies, not because this describes Aries, but the essence of Aries in the zodiac implies we are new. We are new into the world. So whatever we're setting the intention for with this new moon in Taurus is actually quite new. And that Mars in Aries is still trying to figure out its way, which is why it matters that we pump the brakes when we're trying to move things too quickly. And I think that because the North Node remains in Aries still the rest of this year and into next and into January of 2025, there can be a great sense of urgency. There can be a great sense, oh, I want things to happen now. And how much longer do I have to wait? And come back to self, come back to the grounded self, and understand that your responsibility lies in showing up day in, day out, one day, one step at a time. Okay. So I hope that this is helpful because this was a rather different interpretation of a new moon. And I couldn't just sit here and explain it to you in a very technical way when the meaning is so much more profound. And my intention with this is that you understand the prolonged potential of this new moon, what can actually come in the long run of this new moon. Now, a few things you want to keep in mind, a few practical things you want to keep in mind. Taurus, Earth energy, what are the practical steps that you can take to actually bring your dreams into fruition? I would not doubt that through the months, I would say really through the summer, through the months of May, June, July, and August, people are really going to be stepping into some kind of spotlight, some kind of platform. They're going to be stepping into leadership roles. There's going to be an initiation of something. And my hope is that you have so much fun with it, that you believe yourself possible of the things that you aspire. And for those of you that are saying, I really don't want to be in a spotlight, I don't want to lead anybody, I just want to be in my own little world, in my own little life, not to be demeaning, not at all, because I personally am someone who loves to be in my own little world, in my own little life. The understanding that you get to feel abundant in accordance to the definition that you create for your life and that you create for yourself. Only one who needs to give you permission for that is you. Okay, so may this be of service. So much love to you all. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week.